Thank you very much. I want to emphasize one aspect of István's presentation, and I want to give some examples of what questions arise when we want to establish the criminal liability for self-driving vehicles. We have been working on this topic with István since 2017, if I'm correct, but he will correct me if I'm wrong. And we've outlined some major issues and possible solutions. We have some differing opinions, which I will highlight towards the end. So to begin, as a motto, I've chosen this quote from Laszlo Visky, who is incredibly famous Hungarian lawyer, and his work was of paramount importance in the questions of traffic offenses. He claimed that the foundation for the safety of traffic will unambiguously be the personal performance of the driver for generations to come. However, I believe that now we may be passing this this time when the personal performance of the driver will be the basis for the safety of traffic. So if you want to categorize the self-driving technology, we can create this table where we have 5 and another like a 0 category for automatization. And my research just focuses on the second, the third, and the fourth instance, where the the second instance, the automatization is present for aiding the driver. So it's not a self-driving vehicle. The self-driving technology starts at the third level, where the vehicle can perform some driving tasks, and the fourth level, the vehicle can work and drive by itself. However, there has to be a human supervisor all the time. So I've put the red line because in the European Union, this is the red line shows that this is the most advanced technology which we can buy at for commercial use at a car dealership. In the European Union, level 3rd and level 4th automatizations are only present in test tracks, for instance, Hungary in Fonyi mode. So my question is, if there is some accident and there has to be a human driver or a human operator monitoring the driving tasks, how can we establish criminal liability? There are some advantages of this technology. What I want to highlight is the decrease in the number of accidents. I chose the statistics from 2019, so it's not divided or amended by the COVID numbers, because obviously in Hungary there was a serious curfew for a few months, so I chosen the last year before COVID, and we see that drivers were responsible for more than 90% of the accidents which resulted in some bodily harm. Obviously, if we believe that all cars in Hungary are stopped for some self-driving technology, it won't mean that there is going to be more than 40,000 accidents less. However, there is a good estimation that the number will decrease. However, this arises the following question, that for instance, chosen this random city, and we take some person called A, and he wants to reach his goal. And let's say it's a self-driving taxi app where others can join it like in a rideshare, and B joins because he is going to the same destination, and just as the same CD. So now 5 persons are traveling in the 5-seat car. However, just before reaching the goal, it crashes with a cyclist. Now, how can we establish liability? All of them are liable? None of them? Are they co-actors? There are a lot of emerging questions, and if we cannot answer them safely, there is going to be a liability vacuum, and the population may lose their support in this otherwise very beneficial technology. First of all, we have to examine the liability of the artificial intelligence. However, István touched this topic slightly, so I'm going to be very brief on it. So in the continental legal norms, the act of a natural person may constitute an offense. And I know that in the Anglo-Saxon regimes, the legal entities can also be offenders of certain crimes and offenses. However, I believe if we find some solution which only examines these topics from the liability of the natural persons, we don't have to choose some solution which is very alien to the Hungarian or continental legal regimes. So German research published by Professor Thomas Weigand and his research team stated that if we develop this question further, we still can, and we still have to reach that we shouldn't punish the artificial intelligence by itself, because the artificial intelligence, like the algorithm which works in a Tesla, cannot define or cannot understand the punishment. It doesn't have a will to live. So if we switch off a computer which draw a Tesla into a cyclist or a pedestrian, it doesn't have the same effect like a capital punishment for a human offender. Furthermore, the actions of the artificial intelligence are not based on their choosing. Yes, there is deep learning, there is supervised or unsupervised learning. However, the first instances of the artificial intelligence begins with certain data set implemented by a programmer, for instance. And therefore, an artificial intelligence cannot choose between morally good or bad. So yes, maybe decades into the future, there may be androids or some other science fictitious thing which we can punish. But now for the weak artificial intelligences, we cannot choose the solutions and sanctions of the criminal law. So we have to search for a human offender. In the Hungarian law, just to give you an example, when we are searching for the causation of the criminal offenses of the traffic law, we have to find some results, for instance, an injury and a breachment of a rule. However, there has to be a connection or relevance between the result and the breachment of the traffic rule. So for instance, if the driver hits a pedestrian, that is a result. The driver didn't have the driving license on him. There is the breachment of a rule. However, there is not a connection between them. Therefore, the driver is only guilty in a misdemeanor. However, not in a criminal offense. There has to be a relevance, and this relevance comes into examination when we want to establish liability for a self-driving vehicle. Just to give you two examples, in the Hungarian criminal code, there are two relevant offenses. Dangerous driving means that the offender causes direct endangerment to the life or personal integrity of another person. So the offender is intentional in this offense. However, if there is an injury, then the offender has to be negligent audits. For instance, if I'm seeing my neighbor cycling home and I want to scare him, and I'm just driving very close to him intentionally, but I'm not as good as a driver I think I am, and I hit him with my car. Therefore, there is a result. I have committed the aggravated version of the dangerous driving. However, if I cause some bodily harm through negligence, therefore I am causing a road accident according to section 235. So there is a difference between these offenses, which I'm going to examine in the following examples. So the first offense which happened in the United States, which resulted in the death of a natural person, was the death of a driver. It happened 7 years ago in Williston, Florida. And I have marked with blue the Tesla and with purple lorry, which was turning red. And the offender or the driver of the Tesla did not monitor the driving at all. He was watching a movie on his tablet, and therefore he did not realize that this car was turning left and the Tesla hit the lorry in the marked section, which resulted in the death of the driver. As you can see in the picture, the weather was very clear, which is important because the software of the Tesla did not realize that there's a lorry in the way. It just thought it's a cloud. The sensors of the Tesla were not working. However, the question arises that if someone has an obligation, as a driver of this Tesla had, to constantly monitor the driving of the self-driving vehicle and ignores these warnings by the vehicle, if he's committing dangerous driving. And I believe not, because just ignoring some warning signs of a car does not create danger to anyone. Obviously, it's dangerous, but it's like an abstract version of danger. It's similar to driving at night without the lights on. Yes, it's dangerous, but we can't establish some relevant danger to another person or passenger. So therefore, I believe just ignoring the warning signs of a self-driving vehicle should not constitute a criminal offense. Maybe a misdemeanor, but not a criminal offense. To continue and to examine the causing a road accident, the following picture is from the first accident which happened when a bystander, a cyclist, died. It happened in 2018 in Florida. We can see on the left panel the inside camera of the Uber and on the right side the frontal camera. And we can see that there is a cyclist crossing the road in black clothing at night. The driver was not paying attention just a minute before the collision. And there is an ongoing criminal trial in the United States trying to establish the driver, Mrs. Velasquez's responsibility. My last information on the trial is that it was postponed due to COVID. I have tried to read it if there was any final sentence or judgment in this case. However, the case is still pending. The defense is claiming that the driver was checking some application updates from the Uber app itself, because the Uber required the passengers or persons monitoring the driving to monitor and to fill out certain things in a required app. And the defense is claiming that the driver was not paying attention to the driving because she was busy responding to the various notifications of her app, which is requested by the Uber. The prosecution claims that she was watching a reality TV show on her phone. However, I want to highlight that if this case happened in Hungary, I think the driver would have a very good chance of not having sentence, because as we can see in the picture, the cyclist is crossing the road in black clothing at night. The same would have happened if the driver was driving just a regular car. So we have to examine where is the limit when we are saying that the human monitoring the vehicle is responsible or not. To help us, there is a table for lateral acceleration and its perceptions. Lateral acceleration means that, and I'm sure all of us has the same experience, that when a car is taking a turn incredibly quickly, we notice it. Maybe it's unpleasant, maybe we feel like we are traveling in a race car. So for instance, if there is a traffic law that a certain turn has to be taken by 60 kilometers per hour, and there is some malfunction in the self-driving software, and it takes the turn by going, I don't know, for instance, 70 or 75, there isn't a difference between which the humans in the car can perceive. For instance, driving by 120 feels exactly the same as driving by 130, as I'm sure most of us felt. The humans in the car don't have to monitor every single task all the time, which is the goal of the self-driving technology. So I believe if the breachments of various traffic rules cannot be noticed by the persons traveling inside the car, therefore, it means that they can be and shouldn't be liable for the accidents caused by the cars. However, if the difference of the breachment of the rule can be perceived by the persons traveling inside the car, for instance, because the car is going by 150 instead of 50 kilometers per hour, therefore, they have to realize there is something wrong, and then they have to override the car or stop the car somehow. Usually there is like a panic button in the car which switches off autopilot and just stops the car in the nearest possible solution. So obviously the solution may differ, but I believe the perception of the humans traveling in the car is of paramount importance. So possible solution, just to start with, is I think the legislator should incorporate this 5+1 division, which the Hungarian legislator did. The more difficult question is how can we define the operator? So for instance, in the United States, in Nevada, Texas, extended the definition of the driver, which I would be very alien to the Hungarian CRES, which is the rule of traffic laws. Or I think we can extend the definition of the passenger, which would be very difficult to do because we would have to amend the various obligations in the CRES a lot of times. Or we can define a new category, which the Hungarian legislature chose in a decree. Also, they incorporated that the self-driving vehicles should post an audiovisual alarm if someone's not monitoring the driving. And this decree also stated that the stressed driver shall be liable to the safe operation of the vehicle. However, this is not really detailed. So what means that the test driver shall be liable for the safe operation? How can we perceive if the operation is safe? So this liability is kind of objective. So I believe that no change is needed in the criminal code, only in the traffic laws. However, there are a lot of different options. For instance, István in his latest book stated that we should establish a sui generis offense, a new offense aimed at the self-driving vehicle and the passengers or operators traveling in the self-driving vehicles. I'm still in disagreement with his statement, but István can react to my statements in the comments or later during this conference. Also, which is very interesting, is the possible decriminalization, because I have stated that these vehicles will mean a huge decrease in the number of accidents. I'm not saying that we wouldn't have accidents with the self-driving vehicles, but the decrease in the numbers would be significant. However, we are not letting out these vehicles to the road because obviously there is a huge question of liability, or if there is a liability for the programmers, or if there is a liability for releasing these products to the market. So paramount importance is if we can establish liability. However, which is important, that if we are not releasing these vehicles to the public use, to our public roads, because we don't know how to establish criminal liability, it means that establishing criminal liability is more important than human lives or human protection of humans, because it means that we don't want to have this technology out in the roads because we don't exactly know how to establish criminal liability. However, it would mean a decrease in the number of accidents in the end. Obviously, as an annex, I have to highlight the trolley problem, because obviously all decisions by the self-driving technology comes back to this decades-old questions of philosophy. However, I feel that there is a thought or belief that this self-driving vehicles should solve all kind of trolley problem, like a professor of morals and civility, because we can establish like dozens or if not hundreds or thousands various forms of the trolley program for the self-driving vehicles, incredibly complex problems and decisions which even the humans cannot take. So it's very difficult, I think, to establish what do we expect the self-driving vehicles to do. If someone's interested, I highly suggest to check out the moralmachine.org website, which throws up 15 or 20 different kinds of trolley problems for self-driving technology. And there is a huge database, more like 100,000 responses have been filled out now. And for that, several universities are taking place in this research. And for that, we may have a huge sample of what a human driver would consider moral or immoral in a very complex traffic situation. So thank you for your attention, and please tell me if you have any questions or any other remarks. Thank you very much.